Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. So today's a very exciting episode. Finally, some big, meaty pieces of sheet metal going back onto the car permanently. Now, I have saved you guys the time of having to watch me button together this car again, but it's completely reassembled. It's completely screwed together as well, just with some self-tapping tech screws here. But we've got it all pretty well dialed in. We've got our valance corners on, just making sure that everything came back to shape really nice. Also got our deck filler just kind of fit up into place, as well as the lower plenum. So, at this stage, like I always say, we want to make sure we test fit everything on this car before we weld any parts and pieces. And then once you do start welding, after you're done, go back and put it back together with tech screws again. So today, my mission is to remove my wheelhouses because I was an idiot and did not weld these permanently before I did this, because if I did, then I could just weld them into the car as they are today. But there's only 3 screws holding the inner and outer wheelhouse together. So we've got to pop them back out, permanently weld those, clean them up, get them back up into the car and where they're going to be, because after that, we're going to work on getting this extremely large and extremely dirty trunk pan installed in the car. I've been hanging on to this thing for a better part of a year and a half. I got it with a really nice parts deal with some frame rails and some other stuff. And it's moved across the country and it's seen better days. It's just dirty. It needs to be cleaned up because it's really just a bunch of dirt and dust that's on there. It's accumulated on there. So we'll clean that up. And as you guys remember back to when we did that rear seat pan, we've got to section out 2.5 inches from each side. So we've got to narrow the trunk pan. And to do that, we need to make sure that we have our wheelhouses together, in place, screwed together, welded together, it doesn't matter. But when it comes time to actually weld this trunk pan in, wherever the trunk pan is, that's where the wheelhouses are gonna stay. So as you guys can see, we need to make sure the wheelhouses are right, the quarters are right, because that's gonna tell us exactly where our trunk pan needs to be. So without further ado, let's pop out these wheelhouses, get them welded together, and get them screwed back into the car. right, so I got both wheelhouses welded together and fit into the car, and I went ahead and pinned in the inside here of our inner wheelhouse, just so that way, because right now I'm gonna basically take the entire back half of the car off again, and I don't want my wheelhouse to move at all, because we're basically gonna weld it exactly where it is right now. We're also going to section and base the trunk pan off of where it is right now, and we know for sure that we have a really nice fit exactly where it is. So with that, I think I'm gonna hydrate real quick and then grab my impact and blow the whole back half of this car off again. So let's get it done. So it's finally time to do something that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, and that is sectioning our trunk pan. So as we did with the rear seat pan, you guys know that we have to narrow this basically by 5 inches all the way across, or 2.5 inches on each side. Easiest way to do this, cut yourself a piece that's 3 inches long, okay? And I'm gonna show you kind of the trick here with doing this, but we're gonna just use this as kind of a little jig template. We'll go ahead, we'll trace this all the way around, and that way we have a nice 3-inch offset on the inside here. We'll cut that, and then we'll get our trunk pan fit into the car. All right, so what I went ahead and did here, as I mentioned, went ahead, used my little jig here, traced it out. But then when it gets to the bottom, you know, we only made it 2.5 inches wider, not necessarily 2.5 inches longer, right? So basically here, it's only gonna be moving in, therefore the back of the wheelhouse should be the same level here. Now there's a couple of these little body lines and little ridges in there, and what I went ahead and did, I cut a diagonal here, or I made a diagonal line, so that way I can avoid those ridges and I don't have to try to replicate those or have anything uneven in between those. So let's get the other side traced out and let's get it cut out. right, guys, so I guess with that, now we're halfway done with providing some of that reinforcement for mounting our wheelhouses permanently. I thought the rear window channel was not that enjoyable. This is a whole different level. This stuff sucks. It takes forever to do. And in my case, I had to replace every single surface that my wheelhouse welds to on the car. So as you guys saw, we started here. All this behind here, behind the wheelhouse, has been replaced all the way around that side and across through the back side here. I went ahead, I did the poor man's version of this little bracket here. And you guys, you could spend as much time as you wanted to making that out of one piece, making it real nice and pretty. At the end of the day, doesn't matter, okay? It's gonna be underneath the quarter panel. The way that I did it here is perfectly fine. We're gonna weld this to our wheelhouse when it comes time. And again, no one will ever know the difference. Here in the back, these brackets, a little tricky to put together, but went ahead, did this in two pieces as well. And these are hovering just barely above that wheelhouse, which is perfect. Still allows me to get it in and out very easily. And all I gotta do is throw a screw in here and it'll suck them together real nice and tight, so that way we can weld them permanently when that time comes. Now, I get to do the exact same thing on the other side. And again, this is not that enjoyable, but as you can see, every single damn surface all the way around this thing needs to be replaced. So that'll be next. Here on the trunk pan, you guys saw me cut out, at least open up enough space to fit our wheelhouses in here. And really sectioning this at this point is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Wherever our wheelhouse is going to be, considering this piece right here was loose, I just put that in here so that way I had a pretty close, pretty tight gap along the outside of it. I went ahead, I pinned it into place where I want it, and this will allow us to make sure that our fit check's good on both sides, and then also really from here to finish sectioning it. Once we get our wheelhouse reinforcements done, we'll just pop this trunk pan back out. We'll cut along the line here of this piece, butt weld them together, and she'll be good as done at that point. So you guys saw me already do it once on the other side. I'm not going to record every single step of doing the other wheelhouse, all the structure underneath. So I'm gonna set up the camera, do a quick time lapse, and bring us to the end of installing these wheelhouses. So let's get to work. All right, guys, and with that, we are all wrapped up with fabricating all the inner structure pieces that are gonna hold our wheelhouses in. And thank God, I'm exhausted. I've probably spent about 10, 12 hours or so doing this because, as you guys saw, every single piece where the C-pillar, where any part of the car welds to the wheelhouse, all of it had to be fabricated and replaced. So it started off, we've got all these L channel, or these L brackets here. I got a little bit of trimming to do there, but I got it marked. Anywhere here where it welds to the wheelhouse, had to replace it all the way around the entire thing there. Same thing goes with the other side. Had to replace all this too. That's looking really, really nice. Really good fitment here. And again, just enough clearance where it's sitting on it, it's hovering over it, but it's not gonna prevent it from fitting nice and tight into the car. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, guys. The next episode is gonna be big because this trunk pan, we're gonna finish sectioning all of that. We're gonna weld our wheelhouses in permanently into the car, weld the trunk pan into the car, and of course, before we do any of that, we're gonna fit check one last time to make sure it's all exactly where I want it before we make it permanent. So if you guys haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. Please give me a follow on Instagram too. I post a ton more pictures on there than I do here on YouTube. So if you guys like what we're doing, you wanna follow, you wanna see more pictures, you wanna get more updates, give me a follow on Instagram. So with that, guys, take care. We'll see you next time.